Hello friends, we are going to start a new video series Heart Rate Variability. In chapter 1 we will discuss about the history. So in quotations of Herophilus around 335 to 280 BC, first written remarks about heart rhythm were found. Not only discovered arteries and veins but described arteries as pulsing rhythmically. Galen of Pergamon in 2nd century AD wrote more than 18 books on the pulse. 8 treatises described using pulse measurement for the prognosis of illnesses. Hales in 1733 did first observations of the permanent variation of pulse and arterial blood pressure. He also observed its relations to the respiratory cycle. Though Western medical historians often quote Galen regarding pulse diagnosis was also used early in Indian and Chinese medicine. Bain-Qiu in 500 BC is on record as a Chinese physician who used and described pulse diagnosis. In 1847, Ludwig first described respiratory sinus arrhythmia. He is the one who developed the kymograph. Then came in 1813 to 1878 Claude Bernard. He defined the term milieu interior. Milieu interior is the internal environment. He gave the concept of internal environment of how the body regulates its system. Walter Cannon from 1871 to 1945 coined the term homeostasis. He expanded the Bernard's concept and developed 4 propositions around it. Walter Cannon and Claude Bernard claimed that the regulating systems that determines the homeostatic state consist of several cooperating mechanisms that act simultaneously or successively, and they describe that homeostasis does not occur by chance but it is the result of organized self-government. Walter Cannon also proposed classical model of autonomic control, described a continuum where parasympathetic activation at one end and sympathetic activation at the other. Dittmer in 1873 proposed a vasomotor center in the rostroventrolateral medulla. Langley in 1921 divided autonomic outflow into sympathetic and parasympathetic components based on spinal origins. He also proposed that parasympathetic efferents are more precisely focused on target organs than sympathetic efferents. So, sympathetic efferents are more diffused. In 1915, Eppinger and Hess asserted that clinical facts such as respiratory arrhythmia, habitual bradycardia, etc., have furnished the means of drawing our attention to the variations in the tonus of the vagal system in man. In 1920, Bainbridge tried to explain HRV in terms of alternations in baroreceptor and volume receptor responses associated with respiratory alternations of intrathoracic pressure. In 1932, Adrian published first recordings of sympathetic nervous system activity in anesthetized cats and rabbits. In 1965, Horn and Lee observed first time fetal HRV and noted that reduced beat to beat variation of the fetal heart was associated with distress before other detectable symptoms. In 1967, Green and Heffron found that explanations of respiratory sinus arrhythmia were developed when they described respiration independent sympathetic rhythms. Jones and Collison in 1970, in a landmark study, described the intrinsic heart rate after blocking both SNS, sympathetic nervous system, and parasympathetic nervous system with the help of propranolol and atropine. So they described the intrinsic heart rate. In 1975, Katona and G introduced a non-invasive approach to measure cardiac parasympathetic control in anesthetized dog. They suggested that the changes in the magnitude of sinus arrhythmia indicated proportional changes in vagal tone. In 1987, Axelrod started to analyze the frequency domain of HRV. In connection to this, they started to use short term HRV of 10 minutes or less. In 1984 and 86, Goldberger showed interest in non-linear algorithms for analysis of HRV, and he is the founder of website PhysioNet that deals with the mathematical modeling of human systems. In 1987, Kliger and et al. Breakthrough of heart rate variability in cardiology happened when he demonstrated a possible role of SDNN. SDNN is a parameter, it is a time domain parameter for predicting mortality after acute myocardial infarction. In 1993, Bigger and colleagues introduced short term measures. So, finally, in 1996, the Joint Task Force of the European Society of Cardiology and the North American Society of Pacing and Electrophysiology established minimal technical requirements, definitions, and range of power bands in the frequency domain. Recommendations on how to conduct clinical research and patient examinations with the help of HRV are published in this landmark paper. And finally, the present scenario is this: no major revision has been necessarily until today because of the comprehensive presentation of currently accepted linear measures and the insufficiently consistent results concerning a plethora of nonlinear algorithms. More than 10,000 papers have been published today. So, this ends the history of heart rate variability. Hopefully, you enjoyed this session. Thanks for watching.